Board, and we are going to get started. So my name is Ashley Bodkins, and I'm with the University of Maryland Extension Office here in Garrett County. This is my contact information. So you guys will be getting a copy of the slides after the presentation for your to reference. We'll be using the email addresses that you used whenever you signed up for this Zoom class, and we'll follow up with the PDF of the slides and also a link to the recording in case you have questions. So I do work with University of Maryland Extension, which is part of the College of Agriculture and Natural Resources. And within the College of Agriculture and Natural Resources, we have University of Maryland Extension. And then one of the signature programs that I work with extensively here in Garrett County is the Master Gardener program. So if anyone has questions about that program, I'd love to talk about that. You can feel free to reach out to me via my email address or give me a phone call, but it's a great volunteer opportunity for folks that want to go out into the community and share gardening knowledge. And I just wanted to put this slide in here today as a thank you to the Deep Creek Watershed Foundation. They went after the grant with the Maryland Department of Natural Resources and secured it in 2020 in order to purchase the rain barrels that we'll be giving away for those folks that qualify. And more information will be available at the end of this presentation. There's going to be a process that you'll have to sign up, and then we'll have them locally available here at the Extension office for you to pick up the end of May. So I appreciate everyone's support for this program, and especially to the Deep Creek Watershed Foundation for getting that grant and letting us have this opportunity. So with that, those are the nitty-gritty of the welcome slides. We're going to start now with information, background information about stormwater management, and then we'll get specifically into some different techniques that you can use to manage stormwater on your property. So the first term I wanted to go over was, what is a watershed? And basically, it's just what area your streams, lakes, rivers drain into. So every piece of the earth is part of a watershed. And so for us here in Garrett County, we are pretty, it's an interesting part of the world because we actually live on the Continental Divide is here in Garrett County. So part of our water flows to the Mississippi and part of our water actually flows to the Chesapeake Bay watershed. So that's kind of interesting. Not a lot of other places, counties would maybe have multiple watersheds in them. So the whole point of a watershed is that it is important to realize that what you are doing at your house can either negatively or positively impact what happens further downstream. So we're going to talk about some ways that you can hopefully have a positive impact on the watershed. And stormwater runoff is a term that we've heard a lot over the years. But basically, it's just whenever precipitation is going to fall on the land, whether that's through rain or snow melt or any type of precipitation, where is it going to go after it falls? And unfortunately, whatever that comes in contact with, it can pick up along the way. So that's where it can become a real problem. And I love these slides that come from Prince George's County and their stormwater management team. So you can see that with these slides up here on the top left, if we had natural ground cover and precipitation falls, we're going to have about 50% of rainfall or precipitation that's either going to soak in, 25% will go deep, 10% will run off, and then 40% is actually going to evapotranspire. So as we add impervious surface, so for example, just a house, you can see that that's 10 to 20% impervious surface. As we get higher amounts of this impervious surface, so towns, and then here on the bottom where it would be cities, so much more water actually runs off, and that's when it can become a real problem. So we go from where we have 10% runoff up here at the top with natural ground cover to down here in a city situation where we have 55% runoff. And that's where we want to try to implement some of these different stormwater management techniques to help slow down and get the water to sink in back into the ground like in a natural setting. And everyone knows that there's a lot of negative things that come from stormwater runoff. So whether that's pollution to flooding to stream bank erosion to even threats to human health through our water sources with pollution and other toxic things that it can pick up along the way. So the less stormwater runoff we have, the less likely we are to have these negative effects occurring. And there is a change in how people are thinking, and there's even change in different laws that have to do with stormwater management here in Maryland. And this chart is a nice comparison of how things have changed in just the last 10 years. So this ESD practices, this stands for environmental site design. And so the change is that we used to think that a good example would be to build a collection pond, but we now realize that instead of having to deal with 20 people's stormwater runoff, it's a much better idea if each house can deal with their own individual stormwater runoff as much as possible on a small scale. So again, you guys are taking this class today to learn more about those different practices that you can implement at your home level. And rain barrels are just one of those techniques that you can use. But we have learned that the more stormwater we can capture and treat on site, the better it is, because then we don't have to deal with it, as it continues to flow downstream or downhill or down to the neighbor's property. So again, change is going to start with each individual homeowner and property owner. And the goal is that you want to reduce the amount of stormwater runoff that you have, and you also want to slow it down and get it to sink in. So this is a great guide. This is put together by Penn State, and you can go to stormwaterguide.org, and it's a great way that you can actually start evaluating your own property and trying to figure out how much stormwater you have actually leaving. So these are some of the charts that come from that stormwater guide. And again, I encourage you, if you have a little time, to go to that guide and download it and take a look at it. But this tells you, how many feet of impervious surface you have. This includes anything that is paved, this is rocks, this is driveways, this is anything that does not allow water to run in or to soak into the ground. So this is rooftops, this is garages, anything on your property that is impeding the water from soaking in. So I did this a couple years ago. So this is my property. We have a couple buildings, we have outbuildings, we have a barn, we have our house roof, and then we have a really long driveway. So if you were to count up all of the square feet of impervious surface that I have, it comes to right at around 9,000 square feet. So with a 1-inch rainfall event, that's right around 6,000 gallons of runoff that's occurring just at my property. So that's a little bit scary, and it's a little bit intimidating. I know most people probably don't have this many roofs or this many buildings maybe on their property, but it's a good thing to take a look at just so you have an idea of how much water is coming off. So once you if you do decide to download this guide and to do this on your property, they're going to walk you through the different steps. They want you to take a look at where the water is ponding, where is it going. Water, of course, always wants to run downhill, so that's always a key idea to where it's going to end up. So what are some things that we can do to actually reduce this runoff and therefore hopefully reduce pollutants and flooding and the other negative effects that could happen when we have stormwater runoff? So this is the University of Maryland Extension website. This talks about some common homeowner stormwater practices. So rain gardens, rain barrels, downspout disconnects, conservation landscaping, permeable hardscapes, and then we're going to talk about some of these other things as we go along. The first one that most folks could easily implement would be redirecting their downspouts from an impervious area or directly going into stormwater drains or something like that. Now, with all of these practices, I have to caution you that you can't just unhook it and hope for the best. You have to have a plan in place because whenever we do get large rainfall events, that water has to go somewhere. And if you're going to do something like a rooftop disconnect, you have to be really careful that you have to know where this water is going to flow to. So you have to have a plan. So this is just one idea, and all of these non-structural practices, they come from the Maryland Department of Environment Stormwater Design Manual. So this is just one idea. Again, I caution you to just unhook your downspout. You don't want to do that. You don't want all of that water to flow right down next to the foundation of your home or the foundation of another building. So don't do a disconnect without a plan in place. Likewise, these are some other types of micro scale practices that you could look into doing. We're not going to spend a lot of time on these today. I just wanted to put them in here for your knowledge. And I see in the chat they're saying a disconnect. What does that mean? That would mean where you would take your downspout and disconnect it from flowing into the drainage system that it's already connected to. The goal would be to take the water that's going into stormwater drains or into another drainage system and get it going directly into the ground. So hopefully that answers that question. The other idea would be to install something like a rain garden. So rain gardens are a shallow area that has been like dug out and then replaced with different types of soils that are going to be very acceptable to absorb water so that it drains very quickly. The goal of a rain garden is not to have a swamp, okay? The goal of a rain garden is to have a shallow area where the water is going to sit and it's going to soak in or drain to a different area within 24 hours. So it's not something that you just want to have, a place for mosquitoes to be breeding or, swampy areas or anything like that. The goal of a rain garden is just to hold the water for a short term, again, less than 24 hours, have it soak in or either drain to a different area where it can then be treated. And one of the really important parts of a rain garden is using native plants. So I love this chart, which you can find these charts all over the internet. But this one talks about how your native plants have much longer root systems as opposed to non-native plants. So it's really important whenever you're talking about putting in rain gardens or any conservation landscaping technique to use plants that are going to have really long and strong root systems to help you get the most benefit from these treatment practices. And then the practice that we're going to talk extensively about for the rest of this class is a way to harvest your rainwater. So again, a lot of times you would just use a barrel. If you are in a position where you have a lot of rainwater to harvest, you could use something larger like a cistern. But basically the whole point of a rain barrel or of harvesting this rain water is to use it for another purpose. Again, to slow it down and to get it to soak into the ground. Whether you want to use it for a specific purpose in your landscape, or if you just want to have a hose at the end of this collection system where you're just going to let it trickle down and soak into the ground. That's completely up to you. Both purposes are wonderful, and anytime we can get 50 gallons 100 gallons to stop and slow down, that's the ultimate goal of these rainwater harvesting systems. So the purpose of this class is to talk extensively about rain barrels. So again, it's really important that a lot of research has found that the first flush of rain that comes off of a roof is where you're going to contain the most pollutants. So, whether that's, chemicals that come out of the roof, or whether that's, you know, stuff that's come out of the air that's landed on your roof. Whenever you can collect that in your rain barrel, that's going to, again, help it from going into stormwater drains or wherever that water is going to ultimately end up in streams and lakes and rivers. So these are just some reasons why you may consider using a rain barrel. So you can, you know, help reduce stormwater runoff. You can, by having this water source available, decrease the amount of water that you're using from a municipal source. And we're going to talk extensively about what you can use this water for. By having this water collected here, it potentially could keep it from going, you know, near your house foundation, which can be helpful. And this also gives you a source of water that's free of chlorine. So some plants benefit from having water that doesn't have chlorine in it. This is a nice photo that tells you, you know, how you can connect multiple rain barrels. If you want to collect more than just 50 gallons at a time, you can do a top connection or a bottom connection. Just a nice photo to illustrate that. That's completely up to you how you want to do that. The important thing to know is that you can't just throw these rain barrels out and hope for the best. You do have to have a little bit of planning in place, particularly where you're going to put the rain barrels. Traditionally, they are connected to a downspout. That's the easiest and fastest way to get them full. So you need to think about, you know, how many downspouts do you have, you know, available on your home? Which area is the flattest? Where are you going to be using the water from the rain barrels? Are you going to be using it like on your lawn? Are you going to be using it on your perennial plants? Are you going to be using it to wash cars or vehicles? So you need to be thinking about all those reasons. And it's really important to remember that 55 gallons of water, that's going to weigh more than 400 pounds. So once these barrels get full, you're not going to be able to move them. And you need to have a pretty solid location for them to stand so that they don't fall over or cause any type of structural damage to your home or outbuilding where you may have them connected. Okay, so some information on installing a rain barrel. Once you choose your location, again, you wanted to make sure that it's flat. If it's not flat already, then you want to make it that way. So whether by digging or leveling or adding some cement blocks or landscaping, you know, fabric and stone to make sure that it's flat. And you want to have an area that's going to be fairly protected from storm events. So that if you get a lot of heavy wind, like in the storms, you know, traditionally that we get here in our area throughout the summer, we have a lot of wind. So you might consider putting, you know, a brick or something like that in the bottom of the rain barrel just to hold it in place until you get water in there. And I also mentioned that the goal of these rain barrels is not to hoard the water. You don't want to just keep it full all the time. You want to be draining it on a schedule, you know, every week. From 5 to 7 days is the ultimate goal. So whether you need to use that water for something particular in your landscape, or whether you just want, you know, you just want to get that barrel empty so that before the next rainfall event occurs, you have a place to, again, capture more rainwater. And, you know, it may not sound like a lot of water, but if you can capture 50 gallons 10 times throughout the season, that's 500 gallons. And, you know, if we have 10 people doing that, that's 5,000 gallons that have been captured just by 10 people doing this 10 times. So a little, you know, does add up to be a lot in these instances. So it is very helpful in the whole scheme of, you know, rainwater collection and stormwater management to have a lot of people participating in a program like this. Just a word of caution that you do not want to have your rainwater draining. So your rainwater, your rain barrel, you don't want to have it draining directly next to your house foundation. So we always tell people that, you know, an infiltration, so the area where it's going to be sinking into, you know, not closer than 10 feet to your house foundation. You don't want to have cause other issues, moisture issues, foundation troubles, just by installing something like a rain barrel. And before you dig, it's always best advice to contact Miss Utility. You can do that by missutility.net/Maryland before you do any type of digging to make sure that you're not going to hit any utility lines, water lines, electric cable, sewer, gas, anything like that. So once you call Miss Utility, they will give you a ticket number, and then they will tell you whenever you are clear to do any type of digging. Some other information on hooking up your rain barrels. So folks that are going to be participating in the rain barrel giveaway, you will be receiving a rain spout diverter. So once you hook it up, you won't have to worry about unhooking it or rehooking it throughout the season. It will automatically fill the barrel. Once the barrel is filled, the water will flow directly back into your downspout system. So I really encourage these types of hookups just because they're easier for the homeowner. They are a little more costly, so not all folks want to invest in that. If you're not going to have a diverter type of system, then I do recommend, you're going to have to manage the runoff some way. So all barrels are going to have an overflow spout. So either have that overflow go directly back into your old runoff system, or have it go into a safe location, like maybe a rain garden or into your lawn, somewhere where it's not going to cause structural damage to your house. The other thing I've seen a lot of people use is something called a rain chain. Again, so here's the downspout that has been connected by a rain chain instead. They're a little bit prettier for some folks' opinion. The one thing I will caution on here on the left-hand side with this rain barrel is that you definitely need some sort of a screen on top of all rain barrels so that you don't have it as a breeding ground for a lot of nuisance insects like mosquitoes. You have to have something on top, a screen of some sort, to keep those adult insects from getting in there and laying their eggs. So this should have a little bit of an X on it, but I really like the photo because of the rain chain. So that's what we're focusing on in that photo. So what are the uses for rainwater that you collect in a rain barrel? So the big thing to understand is that it's not safe for human consumption. Uh, it cannot be used for bathing or drinking or cooking, but it can be used to water your plants, your lawns, rinse tools, use it in compost bins. It's a great supply for ornamental ponds or bird baths. You can use it, in your home if you have a power outage. So like any for non-potable uses like flushing toilets. There has been a lot of back and forth information out there about whether you can use it on vegetable gardens or not. And this next slide is going to give you a great resource from Rutgers that talks about the process for testing and applying harvested rainwater from a rain barrel onto your vegetable garden. Their guidance, again, if you're planning on using this or you were hoping to use it for a vegetable garden, I highly encourage you to visit this website and check it out and use your best judgment. It basically said that they highly recommend that you test the water and that they found it to be safe for the most part, but every situation is going to be different depending on where you live and, what maybe surrounds your home and that sort of thing. So I always tell folks to err on the side of caution. I don't recommend you using it on a vegetable garden. But again, this is guidance from Rutgers that I highly recommend you check out if you are interested in looking into that. And if so, then follow the steps for testing before you would actually use it on your vegetable garden. And the other big thing that I wanted to touch on is that these rain barrels are not maintenance free. They have to have a little bit of maintenance that goes with them. Again, you have to make sure you keep the screen on it and keep it free of debris. You want to be sure that you are emptying these barrels every 5 to 7 days. That's going to help discourage algae growth. And if you are looking at purchasing a rain barrel, one that is dark in color is the best way to go because that's going to help discourage algae from growing as well. You want to make sure that you check your connections and check your downspouts regularly. You want to keep all your debris out of the downspout so that it doesn't, again, plug your screen on the rain collection system. And for here in Garrett County, in a cold climate where you're going to have freezing temperatures, you cannot keep these barrels hooked up all year round. I would say that you're probably going to be able to put them out sometime in mid-April, and that could be through October until we start having, continually cold weather where we're going to have a lot of freezing occurring. Once that happens, you need to drain them completely and either turn them upside down so no water can get in there, and be sure that you reconnect your downspout system. Or the best thing would be to put them in a garage or in an outbuilt building until the next season when you can get them back out. You do not want to leave them freeze and thaw. As water expands and contracts, it's going to put a lot of pressure on these. So you could bust the fittings on them. It could bust the barrel altogether. It can also cause, damage around your foundation of your home if you let all of that water seep down in there, because it's not, once the ground thaws, it can't soak in. So it's really not a helpful practice with stormwater management once the ground thaw or once the ground freezes. So you want to be sure that you are disconnecting these in an area, if you live in an area where it's going to be cold through the winter months. And it is perfectly fine, to paint your rain barrel. Because of the plastic that they are made out of, it's you can't just paint it in one single step. The process would be that you'd want to clean it with soap and water. You want to be sure that you would scuff it with some sandpaper. That's going to ensure that your paint sticks. Then wipe it down with rubbing alcohol. And then you want to make sure that you find a paint that is labeled for use on plastic. But this was just, I did a quick search on Pinterest yesterday, and there are so many fun ideas out there for, what you can put on your rain barrel, and you can really make them either stand out or blend into your house foundation depending on what your goal is. But I've even seen some different areas that have done this like as on like an art project, an art fundraising project, where you get your barrel painted and you give a donation to a certain organization. So I think there's a lot of great potential, and they can just be absolutely beautiful. And I did just want to, put this in here that we all want to be good stormwater neighbors. So, what you do on your property can either negatively or positively affect what happens on your neighbor's property. So try to think about that, and don't, create headaches for somebody else on down the line. Just a couple notes that, if you're going to build your own rain barrel, it has to be a food grade container, especially if it's going to be something that's plastic. A lot of the blue barrels and the barrels that you see commercially are like from the pop industry, or, from pickled products, things like that. So we always recommend food grade containers. And this is one source that I found here locally near Oakland, Maryland. This is in Morgantown, but the company's name was Jennings, and this was the phone number. So I did want to put that in there if you are looking to build your own rain barrel. And there are wonderful, wonderful fact sheets and guidance out there on how to do so. This was a fact sheet from dukefarms.org on how to build a rain barrel. Again, I'll be sharing these slides and the PDF so that you guys can just click on these links if you're interested in doing so later on. But basically the process is that with your rain barrels, you have to have a drainage hole at the bottom. Some folks put another drainage hole in the middle, so if you want to use like a watering can, it's a little bit easier. You have to have an overflow, and then you have to have a hole in the top to collect the water in. So you have to have some sort of strainer or screen there at the top, again, to make sure that you keep the insects out. And there are a lot of tips through some of these different fact sheets that you can find. You can use a jigsaw or a hole saw here at the top, and then drill bits at the to do the other fitting holes at the bottom. And if anybody's interested in doing this, you can feel free to contact me. I've done a couple of workshops where we've built our own rain barrels. So once you do it a time or two, it's not too difficult. There are some tips like getting a bulkhead fitting and some some tools that you can, use that make it a little bit easier than just, striking out on your own. So if you have questions about building a barrel, please just feel free to email me or give me a call, and I would love to help you with that. And just lastly, just a couple more things to think about. So if you're going to do a rain barrel, you might also consider doing some conservation landscaping around your home. Again, the whole point of conservation landscaping is to use plants or trees that provide good wildlife habitat, but also that are going to help soak up water pretty quickly. So again, a lot of times those are going to be your native plants that have extensive root systems, and a lot of times they're going to be perennials. And there are some really cool new inventions and new products out there. So this is an example of some pervious surfaces type of landscaping that you can do. And these would be like pavers that you would purchase. So instead of just a straight piece of concrete or rock where the water can't soak in, they're made of little tiny rocks that are held together with like a screen. So whenever the water hits it, you can see they're dumping like a 10-gallon bucket here, and it's soaking directly down into it. So that's a pretty cool new technology that a lot of businesses and things like that are looking into figuring out. I also just wanted to talk a little bit about yard maintenance. There are fertilizer laws here in Maryland, so just be sure that you are following those. Keep your fertilizer at least 25 feet away from waterways. Never put it on, walkways or that impervious surface area. And just be, just wanted to mention that real quick. And this is another great webinar resource. Jackie Takis, a watershed restoration specialist with University of Maryland, did a webinar all about rain barrels, installing them, finding a location, and that kind of thing. So I wanted to share this with you all and encourage you to take a look at it whenever you do have extra time. I just wanted to end with a quote, without knowledge, action is useless, and knowledge without action is futile. So, you do want to take a step in the right direction. Any small action that you can do to help mitigate stormwater runoff is a good thing to do. Just be sure that you do research all of your options and before you do make a change. So for those folks that are from Garrett County or have a Garrett County mailing address, this is your opportunity to sign up for a free rain barrel and a diverter. So Miss Roberta is going to drop this Google form link into the chat, or we'll do it here just as soon as I end this presentation. So the terms are that you need to have a Garrett County mailing address so that you can pick up your barrel, because they are big, so we cannot ship them, unfortunately. And because we did get this Maryland DNR Keep Maryland Beautiful grant in 2020, we do need photos of barrels that are being used in the landscape. So that we do want you to agree to send us a photo after you get it hooked up. And if you're willing to do those things, to pick up your barrel, you live in our area, then you can sign up for one of 40 free barrels that we have. Okay, so Miss Roberta has dropped the link here in the chat box. Thank you. So you guys, please click on that link and you will have the opportunity to pick up your barrel the Friday before Memorial Day on May 28th. There are time slots available because of the COVID-19 restrictions. We don't want, we want to space everyone out. So we have asked you to pick a time slot. If for some reason those time slots are not available for you and your schedule, please just reach out and let us know. Our goal is to get the majority of folks, picking up their barrel on that Friday, but if for some reason that doesn't work, just let us know. Okay. And with that, these are the references that we used. And if you guys have questions, I see there seems to be a lot of activity in the chat. So I will work, I'm going to check out those resources. I'll leave the resources slide up here, and then I'm going to look at some of these questions that we have here in the chat. I do thank everyone for joining us today. if you are in a time restraint and you want to jump off of the call, I completely understand. That is all the information that we're going to be talking about. I'm going to be answering these chat questions, and then you can expect an email from me in the next couple of days, again, with a lot of these links, with the link to the recording, and also with a PowerPoint presentation, the slides from the PowerPoint presentation. So, all right, thank y'all for joining us, and I'm going to work on these questions. All right, so I see if we live in Washington County. So you can go ahead and register. I can't guarantee if we don't have 40 people. I see somebody asked if I don't live in Garrett County, but I live in Washington, can I qualify? The answer would be go ahead and register. And then if we don't have 40 people from Garrett County, then we'll definitely consider that. If you have a part-time Maryland address in McHenry, that's fine. I just need to have a Maryland address. That's fine. Go ahead and sign up. Okay, great. Information on a rain barrel or a rain garden. I will consider doing that for you. I would love to do that. Is there a way you can help PG County qualify for this grant? Giselle, if you want to email me, I'll put my email in here. I will share the process that we went through to get the grant. And I would be happy to share everything that we did to qualify. There is my email address, so feel free to reach out to me if you want information about the grant that we received, just so. All right. Okay, so where can you get a free rain barrel if you aren't in Garrett County? I'm not really, I don't have a list of that put together, but I would check with your, local extension offices. They may have a list of that. There are several, places, east of here, east of Garrett County, if you're in Maryland, that do some rain barrel building classes and things like that. And they're, if you're willing to build your own barrel, they are pretty affordable. You can probably build one for right at $70. So that's an option maybe as well. Again, if you want to reach out to me, and tell me where you're located, I can maybe help you try to find a location that you could get another barrel. Okay, so yes, don't use the water for drinking. And I'm going backwards, I apologize. Okay, so I see there's a question about why does this slide say more water available for drinking? So the point of that was that if you're using the collected rainwater for other purposes, non-potable purposes, then it's going to leave other water, other sources of water in the municipal treatment center available for drinking. So that's a little complicated, but hopefully that works. All right, as a homeowner, do I have to approach rain gardens differently if I'm on a well or septic system? And the answer is kind of twofold. So if you're going to do a rain garden, you definitely can do that. Even if you are on a well and septic, you would just want to do it away from those areas. So if there's a different area in your yard that's not near your septic, drainage field and not near your well, then you definitely could install a rain garden there. Okay. I think that I went back to the beginning there, so I think we're doing okay. Okay. So I think that we've gotten through most all the questions. If you guys have, again, if we missed any of them, please feel free to reach out. But otherwise, I am going to go ahead and stop this recording. And